Feeling stretched thin, like your to-do list is running your life? Maybe it's time to say no, not to be selfish, but to stay sane. Now, man, life is crazy right now. The week I wrote this, I looked at my checklist and felt instantly overwhelmed. I had to write, film, and edit this podcast. Then I needed to create shorts to go along with it. At the same time, I was also celebrating Father's Day, my oldest son's birthday, and my own birthday, all in that same week. And then you throw in my day job, the honey-do list, mowing the grass, and prepping for the next week's vacation. And the list just kept growing. And here's the truth. There is no way I was going to get all that done. And the hardest part, most of it is all good stuff I wanted to do, and stuff that mattered. But something I've struggled with for a long time is saying no to the good things so I can say yes to the best things. I'm someone who wants to help everyone who asks. I want to show up. I want to be dependable. But if I say yes to everything, I end up showing up halfway or not at all. So how do I say no to the good things so I can say yes to the best things? Here's how. So point 1, saying yes creates space for what matters. When you say yes to everything, you're not being generous. You're actually being stretched, and eventually something will break. John Maxwell, one of the most respected voices in leadership, often talks about the discipline of saying no. Despite receiving countless invitations to speak, write, and collaborate, Maxwell is known for turning down many of them, not because they aren't good opportunities, but because they aren't the right ones. He once said, "You cannot overestimate the unimportance of practically everything." That's a bold statement, but it's true. Maxwell believes that great leaders must learn to say no to good things so they can say yes to the best things, the ones that align with their purpose, their calling, and their long-term vision. This mindset has allowed him to focus deeply on what matters most: developing leaders, writing transformational content, and building a legacy of influence. His impact isn't the result of doing more, it's the result of doing less with greater intention. Saying no isn't about rejection, it's about protection. You're protecting your time, your energy, and your ability to show up fully for what matters most. So once you've created space by saying no to the things that don't align with your purpose, what happens next? That space becomes sacred, and how you protect it matters just as much as how you created it. That's where boundaries come in, not just for your time, but for your trust. Point 2, boundaries build trust. It sounds backwards, but saying no can actually build more trust than saying yes. Brené Brown, the researcher and best-selling author, has spent years studying vulnerability, courage, and leadership. One of her most powerful insights is this: clear is kind and unclear is unkind. She shares how early in her career she would say yes to every request, speaking engagements, interviews, collaborations, because she didn't want to disappoint anyone. But over time, she realized that her yeses were actually costing her energy, clarity, and even credibility. Now she teaches that setting boundaries isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. When people know what you're available for and what you're not, they trust your yes more. They know that it's intentional. Boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity, and clarity builds trust. But boundaries aren't just about protecting your time, they're about sharpening your focus. And in leadership, focus is everything. Because the more responsibility you carry, the more critical it becomes to say no, not just for your own well-being, but for the sake of your team, your mission, and your impact. And that leads to my third point. Saying no is a leadership skill. Leaders who can't say no end up leading from exhaustion, and exhausted leaders don't inspire, they survive. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple in the late 1990s, the company was struggling. One of his first moves, he slashed the product line from dozens of models to just 4. Why? Because he believed that focus was the key to excellence. Jobs famously said, "People think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on." But that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas. That discipline to say no, even to good ideas, allowed Apple to pour its energy into a few great products. The result? The iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, innovation that absolutely changed the world. Saying no isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the discipline to stay aligned with your purpose. So how do we actually do this? How do we build the muscle of saying no with clarity, confidence, and consistency, especially when the pressure to say yes is constant? That's where the Say No model comes in. It's a simple framework to help you practice the art of saying no with purpose. S stands for stop and reflect. Is this aligned with your priorities? A stands for ask yourself why. Why do I feel the need to say yes? Y stands for yield to the best. Don't settle for good, make room for great. N stands for name your boundaries. Be clear and kind. And O stands for own your no. Say it with confidence, not guilt. This week, look at your calendar or your to-do list. Ask yourself, what's one thing you need to say no to? What's one thing you need to protect space for? And practice saying no, not to be selfish, but to be strategic. Thanks, guys, for your patience on this episode. If this episode gave you something to think about, would you do me a favor? Like this episode, drop a comment below, and subscribe to the channel. We're building a space for real leaders to grow, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.